because I realized that what was living behind that boy's eyes was purely and simply evil.
You thought the game was over, but it's only just begun.
Welcome to Massacre. No one's safe. I hope everyone's having a fantastic day today. So I want to go over the spoiler review for Saw 10. I think everybody's excited. And if you haven't seen the movie, click away because I've done my non-spoiler review already. And definitely check that video out, see the movie, and tell me what you think. I gotta say, when the focus was on John Kramer in Saw 10, I thought they were lying in the beginning last year. Like, how much focus are they really going to put on John Kramer? And let me tell you, they put full focus on John. Since this movie takes place between Saw 1 and Saw 2. I would say the first 30 to 40 minutes of this film, at least 35 to 40 minutes of this film, is definitely John's life. This really is just John, how he gets his surgery. Very emotional. This was a very, helpless. John Kramer went from helpless to happy that he was getting the surgery. He only has a few months to live. He doesn't have much. His brain tumor, they can't give him the surgery. He goes for this Peterson project thing that they're doing this magical, medical science that's illegal and obviously not, approved by the FDA. So he decides that he's going to get the surgery. But while he's getting the news, he walks around the hospital for like a few minutes, and he sees that there's a janitor that is trying to steal from a patient that's laying in a hospital bed. Now, the janitor opened the drawer, had a watch, a wallet, stuff like that. So John is looking through the blinds of the hospital door, watching this guy if he's going to steal. Then we go into a sequence, the eyeball trap, which everybody's been waiting for. We already saw an official clip of it that Lionsgate put out. So this is imaginary. This actually isn't happening, but it's cool that they added it. Like John is like imagining that he's putting this guy through a trap. I think it was an awesome trap. You have a knob on, he turns a knob on the left side that turns 5 times. You break 5 of your fingers, or you lose both of your eyeballs, with both vacuum tubes connected to his eyes. The effect of the pulsing eye was so cool. And by the end of it, he only had 60 seconds to get it done, and both his eyeballs get sucked out. The effect of the eyeball, they have a couple point of view camera shots that were pretty cool in that one, where they show the eyeball literally rip out of his eye socket, and it gets sucked up into the vacuum, and then it gets into like the vacuum, where the storage in the vacuum is, and you see the eyeballs just sitting there. So I thought that trap was just so effective, really cool, and I like how these traps are definitely connected to the characters. Hospital type traps. Fast forward through it, John goes to Mexico. He gets into a cab with Diego, which he becomes another character in this franchise for this film, and gets to this compound. He ends up meeting Cecilia. Actually meets up with Gabriela, which is another major character, which she was apparently saved by, she had cancer. She was saved, by Cecilia. She said, she saved my life. John meets Cecilia, talk about life. And I thought the funny thing about this, I thought the funny thing that him and John and Cecilia talked about, she's like, what other hobbies do you have? What else are you going to do with your life? And John's like, I like to help people. And then Cecilia's like, oh, like a life coach? And John's like, yeah, something like that. I thought that part was hilarious. I thought that was funny. And really, there's no jokes in this book. Like, there's no comedy. That was like the only part that was actually, everybody chuckled. Like, oh, dude, that's awesome. Like, Cecilia takes John to this abandoned, to the hospital, and where they meet, they meet Valentina, they meet Mateo, the rest of the characters, to the con artist doctors that are about to prepare John for surgery. John gets there. He meets a guy named Parker that had, I guess, neck cancer or something like that. And he's like, oh, they saved my life. And he leaves. And he's another major character that ends up in this film as well. This is such a sad part because, like, they're all the doctors in that room are comforting him and making him, and John is just smiling like, I can't believe this is happening. I'm gonna get my cancer fixed. Like, I'm gonna get the cancer done and get it out of my body, and I'm gonna have a happy life. Like, you see it in John's face. They're like, it's like taking advantage of an elderly man and taking his money, and it was just behind it. There's so much sadness to it because John feels hopeful at this moment. And I thought that was just, it just touched me in a lot of ways, and it really touched my heart pretty good there. So we already knows what happens later, but that was kind of sad. While John is having the surgery, they told him he's going to be in and out of consciousness. So while he's in consciousness, where he could see what's going on, he sees a screen inside the hospital room where they opened his head up. They could see his brain. So John is like looking through a reflection of a screen that he could see his own brain. It was Diego. Diego was the cab driver that drove John to the compound, to take him to the compound. He was the one that actually was doing the actual surgery on John's head. So he said something in Spanish to Mateo that was near the screen, and Mateo turned the screen so John wouldn't look at it. So what it looked like there is they pretty much opened him up and then they closed him up. And then John was in a big head bandage. He rested up at the compound. Cecilia says, "You start your new life. You're going to be great." So John leaves. He goes home and he goes to a park where he sits there and he has that little scrapbook that he's had the whole entire time. And it's so funny because he's got like Saw 3 traps. The rack trap, I know that's in there, which I did see. I don't know if anything else is in there. I have to look at it again. But then there's a moment where John's sitting there at the park after the surgery. He's got the bandage on. He's sitting there and he rips the page out, which is kind of crazy because I'm sitting there thinking, dude, does he not want to do this anymore? Does he not want to play these games and put people in traps and do this? Does he not want to do this to people anymore? You know, like, not like they're great, good people, but man, he really like feels like he's got a second chance in life right now because of this surgery. And, you know, maybe he can get back with Jill. Maybe there's a lot of things that are really driving him, positive things. John goes back and he goes back to the hospital. He goes back to the abandoned hospital and there is nobody there. Nobody. There is nobody there at all. And he goes into the hospital room where he had the surgery and the place is cleaned out. There's barely any equipment. There's a couple pieces of equipment left lying around. He goes in there. He's just confused on what's going on. He was looking for Gabriela. He was calling her name. All the portraits and everything was all ripped off the walls. Like, there was nothing. So he finds this TV that's still on. There's a little computer screen that's still on. And he turns the computer screen and he uses a controller to press a play button on the screen. There was a video being paused that he ended up resuming. It was a video of hospital doctor 101 how-to type videos. Like how to open up an incision, or like serious, like a doctor 101 video if you don't know how to surgically do stuff video. And John just was in shock. That moment made me feel so bad. He took off his bandage. Nothing was, he had a little scar probably, but nothing much there. Like, they did nothing to him at all. Like, did absolutely nothing. And he had his hands over his face. He was upset. And I don't know what he destroyed. I forgot what he destroyed when he was in there, but he like wrecked that whole entire room. And it was so emotional, and I felt so bad for him. The realization that he went from literally hopeful to getting the surgery and being happy, and the way he was smiling and they were helping him and they were catering to him. It's really messed up. It makes me angry inside. This makes you want John to be the hero of this movie for a reason. I think that was the moment where I'm like, oh, John, go get these pricks. So throughout the movie, John has been on the phone and he's making phone calls. And I think he's trying to find out where all these people are, all these doctors, all these fake doctors, where they're at, because they're all separated now. I'm feeling that he did call Mark Hoffman. Mark Hoffman gave him the locations where everybody is. And by one, he got Amanda to fly to Mexico. And Amanda, in her pig mask and her pig robes, her dark robes, start kidnapping everybody. Kidnapping every single person. Which was great. I loved all of those scenes. The first trap was Diego, which he had the duct tape hands with the knives coming out of both of them. He had pipe bombs that were incisioned in both of his arms. And John is literally watching from the next window over with his little sketchbook in hand. He has this sketchbook still in hand throughout the movie. And I don't know why, but maybe he's writing stuff in it. I have no idea, for other traps or stuff like that. So the tape plays that Diego has to use the knives on his hands to literally to rip out these pipe bombs that are literally in these metal pipe bomb strands that are incision in his arms. He gets it done. He gets both arms done completely, takes chunks out of his arms, and he survives. The pipe bombs explode. He survives. I think he does survive. And John says, okay, you passed your test or whatever. So most likely he does live. I don't know what happens to him. We don't see him anymore. And then comes the good part where you see everybody. You see Cecilia, you see Mateo, and you see Valentina and Gabriela that are in this abandoned hospital. So he brings them back to the abandoned hospital where it all started, where he got screwed over with this surgery. A lot of good scenes here with John and kind of going up to Cecilia and explaining to everybody in the room, like, you know, this is what you did to me, and you guys are going to be put through a you know, nobody knows who he is. Nobody knows, but they're shocked at this moment of what's going on. The first one to go in the trap is Valentina, which she had the wire saw. She had the wire saw connected, a contraption that was in front of her neck that if she, you know, they push a button and a certain amount of time, she has to use a manual wire saw. And literally she's got marker Sharpie incisions on her legs, on one of her legs. And I think she had to cut both her legs off, or just one. I think she had to cut both of her legs off. She ended up cutting one of her legs off, but that wire saw going back and forth, and she's got the wire saw under her leg, and she's going back and forth, and the sounds of that trap freaked me out. That one was where I had to keep one eye open, and I don't ever do that in movies, but that was creepy, and she was screaming, and her whole leg came off. She ran out of time, and the wire saw that was connected to the machine ended up going towards her neck and cut her head off. Whole body falls down on the ground, and Jesus, that was kind of crazy. Amanda shows up in these scenes, and she's being as like great as usual. She's like being a smart ass. She's being mean. Her and John are having conversations every time. Like, they have this little upstairs office that they go up to talk about things. So they had a moment in this film where, you know, John's saying, "I'm dying," and Amanda is just crying and just very upset. And she ends up hugging him, and he's got a tear in his eye, and they're both crying. That fucked me up. Like, that moment, like, fucked me up royally. Like, to see them two cry, like, I've never seen that. And like, I've seen them emotional towards each other, maybe in Saw 3, maybe when she died at the end of Saw 3, and he had a tear coming down his eye because he really did care about her. Amanda has this thing against Gabriela. Gabriela is the one that apparently had cancer, and she was saved by Cecilia, and she is tied up to this chain by her leg. She felt bad. Amanda felt bad for Gabriela. Since Gabriela was supposed to go second after Valentina, she didn't go second. She went third because Mateo was the next one on the list. She felt bad for Gabriela because she was a drug addict. Amanda had a discussion with John upstairs saying pretty much, you know, sometimes it's against our nature. Like, sometimes, you know, we can't help ourselves. Like, these things just happen, you know, being a drug, you know, sometimes, you know, but John is like, oh, she had free will. She had all the free will to not be a drug addict, you know, and Amanda's just getting very upset over it because she know what she was. She was a drug addict. She was, you know, that's what she was before John put her in that trap and rehabilitated, apparently, you know, as we know she really wasn't. So Mateo is next. They knock him out. He comes out in this chair. We saw the brain surgery trap, the one we kind of been waiting for to see what's going on. He rolls out in this chair. He's freaking out. Then you see Billy the puppet roll out on his tricycle, and he starts moving the bike and rolling towards Mateo with the tools and the Play Me tape on the back of the bike, which I thought was a really nice touch. I really like that a lot. Mateo is sitting there, is like, oh, I'm not playing that tape. I'm not playing that tape. And then this electric stuff starts happening on his neck where I guess, like, they're forcing, I guess John has a thing inside that, I guess, that brain surgery trap where it's forcing him to play the tape or whatever. So, and John is sitting upstairs. John and Amanda, they're all sitting upstairs while all this is happening. Mateo plays this tape, And it was so dark music and John talking at the same time. It was like, oh, I loved it so much. It was so good. I felt so fulfilled that these people are just bad people and they're about to do some horrible things to themselves. And I absolutely loved it. The tape's playing and John's like, gray matter. So he stops the tape like a couple times because he's asking Cecilia, like, what's this? Oh, it's a bone cutter. I don't care what it's called. Like he's flipping out in the chair. And then like John's talking on the tape about people doing brain surgery on themselves, that people have survived doing brain surgery on themselves. Pretty much has to put some of his brain matter in this enzyme tank that will melt. This arrow it'll charge up the coils, which will unlock the key, takes the key, and then he'll be able to escape, which obviously he does not survive this at all. He says, one thing I haven't provided is an anesthetic. So you're not going to be asleep. You're going to want to remain alert, which was the exact quotes. And I thought that was great. And he's like, you have 3 minutes. He's like, or something wrong is going to happen to you. So then like the clock starts rolling, 3 minutes. He doesn't get anything done. He gets nothing done. He cuts his scalp open. He gets a little piece of his brain and it just wasn't enough. By the time he gets done, there's like a couple seconds left. And then, and it's such in relation to Mexico and why they're in Mexico. I don't know what it's called, but it's like some tribal type mask that's opened up around his head. It closes on him. It closes up and it melts and burns his face while he is being electrocuted at the same time. And then the lights go off on the trap like it's done. Like, I love that. And then the music at the end when it ends, I thought was such a great touch to that. Gabriela was next. Her trap wasn't that bad at all. It was a pretty easy one. So she was tied up. She was shackled from her ankle. She was shackled on one arm. It lifted her up to the roof of the hospital. There was a hammer up there. All she has to do is pretty much hammer and break. She has to break her wrist, she has to break her hand and break her foot to get out of this trap. While there is because she had cancer and she was apparently healed from cancer. So there's this big heat element that is literally cooking her to death. And she survives it. She breaks her arm first, and then she breaks her foot, which is great. She breaks her foot first, then her arm. And then, she gets burned up pretty, and she falls to the ground, and she's pretty much trying to stay alive at this point. After Valentina died, when her head got chopped off and she lost one, she cut off one of her legs, while John and Amanda were upstairs, they grabbed her intestines. They actually Cecilia dragged her body. They cut her open. They took her intestines and she gave everybody her intestines. And literally there's a table in the middle that had Cecilia's phone in it. So Cecilia, was able to pull the cart towards her to get her phone. She ends up calling somebody, and Amanda ends up zapping her with this electricity thing. So then somebody shows up, and it's Parker. It's friggin' Parker Seer. And if you remember who Parker Seer was the guy in the hospital with the neck bandage when John got to the hospital to get the surgery and said, oh, they saved my life. Parker Seer was there to get his money back from Cecilia that he was screwed over. So John brought him upstairs, says, look, give me your gun. Like, the only way this is going to work is if I have your gun. You sit down and you see what I'm doing. Parker calls John a sick fuck because of what he's doing to these people. You have to make me one promise if I get you out of these cuffs, because he was handcuffed. If I get you out of these cuffs, do not use your gun on me. It was becoming the morning of the next day, and they had to get this game going a lot faster. Parker Seer, that was promised not to grab the gun, ends up grabbing the gun and puts it on Amanda and John and puts him downstairs. And then the next twist that we didn't know is Parker Seer was working with Cecilia the whole entire time. They were not, I don't think they were married or bored. I think they just liked each other and they just worked together. While Gabriela's on the ground, they're trying to figure out what's going on. Cecilia actually kills Gabriela. She steps on her neck and squishes her neck. And John's emotion towards people just getting killed is just ridiculous. You know, it's just like John is so humanized in this. Like, he sees Gabriela die, and Cecilia is more of the lesser of two evils, or the more of two evils, I should say. Cecilia mentions that John Kramer did her a favor by killing everybody in these traps because there's no loose ends, and obviously from what John's money that they gave her, she was able to split it with everybody. But since everybody's dead, there's no more loose ends. She can keep all the money for herself, is what she states. All of a sudden, they hear a banging on the wall of the hospital, and there was a boy kicking a soccer ball onto the wall, and Cecilia was going to grab this boy and bring him inside, which is really weird. Earlier when John arrived at the compound, there was a boy kicking a soccer ball. Or before John got the surgery, John actually helped this kid with his bike, and for some reason asked the boy how to say pull in Spanish. And I was like, I kind of didn't get that part at the time and why he asked the kid what is pull. So he fixed his bike. And he smiled. They both smiled at each other. And that was the last time we saw the boy. The boy shows up because obviously he lives near there. He's kicking a soccer ball against the side of the building. Cecilia brings the boy inside there. She asked John where his money is, and they said it's upstairs. Cecilia tells Amanda to shackle herself. Cecilia takes the boy, puts him in this trap, and John in the same trap. While John gets chained up, he tells Parker, she's gonna burn you. He tells Parker that Cecilia is gonna burn him. You just don't see it coming yet. It's like at that moment you have to hear what they're all saying, because when John Kramer said something, you better listen to John Kramer when he says something. Go into this trap. The boy and John are laying across from each other, and it's a blood boarding trap where you pull this lever to get blood boarded, pretty much like waterboarding, but it's blood. So blood is hitting John in the face for a long time. Then the boy pulls his lever, so then John stops getting hit by blood, then he gets hit by blood, and vice versa. So it goes back and forth for a while. Hence why you get the whole thing with John helping the boy with the bike and saying, teaching, how to say pull in Spanish, which is really weird, which I connected that right at the end. So Cecilia and Parker go upstairs in John's office to go retrieve the money in this bag. But there is no money in the bag. They pull something in the bag, and it's a trap. The doors lock Cecilia and Parker inside the office. A tape starts playing. John says in the trap, he says, the two of you have worked together to destroy others. Now you'll work against each other. Only one can survive, and the choice is yours. And then this gas starts pouring into the room. Now, there is an open hole in the room that they have to fight each other to be able to survive. That's the only oxygen that they are getting out of that room. So, really through a whole entire battle, as that trap was activated, as those doors closed, the blood boarding trap stopped. John uncuffed himself. Amanda uncuffed herself. The little boy uncuffed himself. And they all got up and just watched this battle go on between Cecilia and her so-called boyfriend, Parker, in this room, literally almost killing each other. Cecilia wins. She stabs Parker a few times in the chest. Parker lands on the ground. And, like I said, the Saw music is playing during this time. As Cecilia kills Parker, she sticks her head outside of the oxygen thing. The poison does stop because the game is over. And she's just sitting there. There's nothing she could do because she's pretty much stuck in that room probably for a long time. Now, Amanda, the boy, and John grabs the money, the $250,000 that they stole from him. He actually gives it to the boy. And then they all walk out of the compound. Sunlight comes through the door as they leave, and then the end credits roll. Saw X. I'm guessing Cecilia is still in the compound left to die, I guess. I mean, that's pretty much like her bathroom chamber, pretty much. That's going to be pretty much where she's going to die. If anyone finds her, I don't know. But she was sitting there. She's living, but she's going to die of starvation or thirst at some point from being in there. for too long, so they just leave and everything's locked, and that's pretty much it with the ending to the film in general. We got a lot of emotions between Amanda. I thought Amanda was great, and John, and the connections in this film, and the traps were amazing, and I thought everything connected perfectly. I think this was a perfect ending. I think people are going to complain about the ending because it wasn't a brutal trap ending with John like getting covered in metal and he transfers himself somewhere where no one will find, where he, you know what I mean? Like that. I think people were expecting something a lot bigger. I wasn't expecting anything big. I thought everything was going to be very simple but effective. And I thought that's what we got in this film. Now we're down to the post-credit scene, man. The post-credit scene. And we walk into the post-credit scene with the lights turning on to the infamous bathroom that we've been seeing for a long time. Somebody is hanging from handcuffs in the bathroom, and John walks in the bathroom. The bathroom looks exactly the same as it did in the original films, which is great. Henry, remember Henry, the guy that, and I totally forgot about Henry. We got to the post-credit scene. I saw Henry hanging there. He's like, Henry, where's your scar? I'm like, oh my God. I totally forgot about Henry because he must have been in on the whole entire scam, telling John to go get the surgery. He was the reason why John got the surgery. He's the one that told him about it and acted like his friend and everything. And and I just couldn't believe it. So then he looks over, John looks over somewhere and he says, detective. And then Mark Hoffman comes out and Costas Mandylor looks so good. He looks so great. And he says the infamous lines that we saw in the Saw 10 trailer. He's like, from all the men that cheat, you pick John Kramer, whatever he said in the trailer. Henry says to John, he takes like the bandana off his mouth and says, please don't, John, please don't kill me. And John's like, that's the last thing you should be worrying about. Hoffman looks back at John Kramer, and then John looks at Henry and says, I want to play a game. And then he starts screaming, and then this contraption that he's wearing, it looks like claws that are just scratching his stomach, like, because that's where his scar used to be. So there's apparently a game with Henry we didn't see yet, and wondering if we're going to see it in the future. And then the camera just starts to pour out, where you see John and Mark Hoffman looking at each other, and then it goes in a circle towards the trap, the trap on his stomach as a close-up, and then that's it. Movie's done. This is my first review of doing a film, and I really want to take my favorite parts and try to make sense of it. And if you've seen the movie and just want to know my reaction to it, this is the perfect place to be for it, because I'll be doing this with a lot of movies. Saw 10 was great. This is a 10.0 movie for me. It's a 10 out of 10 for me. I think that the movie has already made $30 million already in 3 days. It was a $13 million budget. There is already rumors about another Saw movie. This thing is making a lot of money right now, and it's going to make a lot more money as it goes on. The story was great. John Kramer, from desperate to hopeful back to redemption character. I think all three phases. Amanda's great. The traps are great. The people in the traps, the actors, the actresses, I thought did a fantastic job. I think Valentina's trap was the most brutal one. But I really want a good story here. I didn't want a rushed movie with good traps. It just wasn't going to do enough for me. I thought this was a stretched out movie. Thank God. Kevin Greutzer, thank you so much for making this film and making all Saw fans so happy. If you guys enjoyed it, make sure you like the video. Make sure you subscribe to the channel for more Saw 10 updates or Saw 11 updates or any type of Saw. We're going to have some, I have a couple Saw videos I do want to make, and I hope you guys enjoyed it. Leave a comment in the comment section below what you guys thought of this film, because I really want to know your opinion on it. I know we get some hate. I think a lot of people do love this film in a lot of ways. I think we were just so happy to see Tobin Bell back, and what a difference Tobin Bell makes. 81 years old, and he pulls off a movie like this. Good for him. Very proud of him, and makes me very happy for the franchise and for him in general as an actor. And this is his best work that he's done in his professional career. So, guys, enjoy the rest of your day. Keep running, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace out.